for those of you that know me, you know that my favourite Star Trek character is Worf, and at the moment I'm watching season 7 of Deep Space Nine. So up until recently, I've been living very much vicariously through Jadzia Dax, because I too would like to take the piss out of Worf until he falls in love with me. I don't know what it is. I obviously have a bit of a thing for like big alien boys who work in security, because I'm also unashamedly completely besotted with Garrus Vakarian from Mass Effect. So it's obviously just a thing. And he's so awkward, and I honestly think it makes some of the best moments in Star Trek, because it's just like ripping the piss out of this enormous guy. I love Worf. He looked like Burger King when he got married. I mean, and like, I love the Klingons so much as well, because like they're supposed to be this like really big, like scary, like and they sing like little songs to each other, and they give each other little badges, like well done, and they're like busy mates, and it's really sweet. I actually think they're really sweet. I think I'm like, it's just obviously just not what I'm supposed to be taking away from it when I'm watching it. But every time like they give each other a little badge, I'm like, that's so cute. A friend of mine who I frequently argue with, because she loves Chief O'Brien and I love Worf, her and her brother pointed out to me that this book exists. And of course, as soon as I found out, I had to buy it. I was like, oh my god, young Worf's first adventure. My first thought when I saw this was like, is it going to talk about the time that he was playing football and headbutted another child and broke their neck and like killed them? But I don't think that episode where him and Jadzia had gone to Risa had been written yet, so I don't think that's part of his backstory. And disappointingly, it's not in this. So I was like, oh, that's my favourite bit. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some just like incredible things. And if you see one of these, any of them, not necessarily just this one, because there are loads of them, just pick it up, because it was a lot of fun to read. I've been reading a lot of crap recently. I've been reading like a lot of really badly written crap recently, and it was like a breath it was a breath of fresh air to read something that was like competently written and wasn't riddled with typos, and like had a story and a structure and had things happen. Cadet Worf arrived at Starfleet Academy as the first Klingon to gain entrance since the Federation Klingon peace treaty. Raised on Earth by human parents, Worf wonders if he is still a Klingon, the proud member of an honourable warrior race, or is he more human? Where does he fit in? When a routine trip to a training satellite turns into an unexpected disaster, Worf must unite the cadets and risk his life before a terrible accident claims the entire class. It's about his like trials and tribulations being this like outcast, being the first Klingon. Obviously, there's a lot of animosity between the Federation kids and Worf, who is technically like, obviously there's a Klingon Federation treaty, he's not an enemy, but as any Star Trek nerd will tell you, they were. In the original series with Kirk and Spock, Klingons were like the big baddies. So this is obviously a while later, and there is now a peace treaty, but there's obviously still like work to be done. It's funny because like I feel like in all of the videos that I've done so far, they've kind of just been like bitching about what I've been reading, but I really only have like praise for this. I really enjoyed it. like, it was just really good. It's for kids. Like, it's obviously for kids. It's not meant for adults. There's stuff in there that as an adult you're like, I know that this would be funny if I was 10. But like, I'm not here to rip this apart. I actually think it's wonderful. I really like it. There's a lot to like about this. The book opens and Worf and his brother Simon they've both got into Starfleet at the same time. They're waiting for a shuttle to arrive and their parents are seeing them off. Worf's mother wants to hug him, but she knows she can't because he's a Klingon and he doesn't like hugs. So they just say bye, and the two boys get on the shuttle and they meet a Vulcan girl and a human boy who end up becoming like part of their study group. The Vulcan girl, Soleta, she is like very calm, she's full of poise, she's intelligent, she's perceptive, she's everything a Vulcan normally is. The human boy, Mark, is like definitely comic relief. He's like socially incapable. Worf spots him from the outside of the shuttle and he's just like touching the window and then touching his nose and then touching the window and then touching his nose, and he keeps trying to like grab molecules out of the air, but like he's like some sort of astronavigation prodigy, so you can throw all these like sums at him, like maths at him, and be like, oh, you need to get from planet A to planet B in 13 hours, but there's a wormhole and there's a time dilation pocket and blah blah blah. What warp would you need to go to get there in that time? And he'll tell you like down to the several hundred thousandth of like what warp speed you need. So that's the only reason he's in the academy. He's absolutely useless at everything else, which, to be honest, personally, I think he would be a bit of a liability. Like, great, you can do maths, but like, what if the ship's exploding? You're going to be spending all of your time trying to grab molecules out of the air and not paying attention to the fact that everyone's going to die. But I like, for a kid's book, fine, yes, okay, Mark McHenry, you're allowed to be here. They arrive in San Francisco, which is where Starfleet Academy is, and they get off the shuttle. And immediately, like instantly, somebody's already like having a go at Worf. There's an alien, he is called Zach Cabron, he's a Bricker, which I had a quick look, he's never appeared in like any of the television, like the species has never appeared in any of the TV or movies or anything. As far as I can tell, he just, like, it's a species that just exists in like the books and stuff. I mean, I might be wrong, but my extremely quick 5-second Google didn't yield a lot. It turns out that this book is also illustrated. It's amazing. So they disembark from this shuttle and Zach Cabron is immediately like, oh, a Klingon, and starts like bullying Worf basically. He keeps like calling him out and calling him a coward. And Simon, Worf's brother, is like, Worf, let's just go, just leave it. And, you know, they end up getting into a fist fight, like, on the landing pad. Before they've even, like, they're not even cadets yet, and they're already fighting. Anyway, there we go. How amazing is that? There you can see Soleta, and she's, like, really disapprovingly watching this scene. I think this guy is supposed to be Mark McHenry, and then there's Worf, and there's Zach Cabron having a fight on the floor. My favourite thing about Zach Cabron is that he looks a lot like Crichton from Red Dwarf. Like, tell me that doesn't look like Crichton. At the beginning, this is like really funny. I know what Worf looks like. I mean, I suppose not everybody's like a Worf superfan like I am, but like, it's just there's a nice wee picture of Worf shaking hands with his mother goodbye and his dad and his brother hugging like here. And then we get there, Soleta. It's fucking great. I honestly wish more books were illustrated. I wish like it was not just a thing that you found in kids' books. There is nothing more exciting to me than opening a book and finding that there are pictures as well. When it came through and it was just like sitting on my desk, I was still I hadn't finished reading Consorting with Dragons yet, and I just didn't want to read it anymore. I really wanted to read Worf's first adventure. There's also a bit of embossing on the front, which I always appreciate. Books tend to be embossed a lot more frequently now because they're having to do things that are a bit more exciting in order to compete with the digital book market. So it's kind of funny and it's kind of nice to see that like a kid's book in 1993 has bothered with a little bit of embossing on the font. But then I guess it's Star Trek, so it's probably pretty guaranteed to sell pretty well. I would be interested to know the percentage of books, like paperback books published in 1993 that had like embossing or debossing or foiling, but that's probably not a thing that would be interesting to anybody except me. So Zach and Worf have this big fight, and they're taken aside, and in what would be an incredible setup for a gay romance novel, they're basically told like, you cannot behave like that and you have to learn to get on, you have to learn to trust each other and put your prejudices aside. You two have to share quarters now. So Worf and Zach have to share a room. Zach gets to the room first and does that thing where he's like drawn a line like down the centre of the room and he's like, this is my side and that's your side. And he's put loads of statues in there for some reason. And Worf's just like harumphs and sits down on his bed and is angry about it. A running theme through the book, it's really quite sweet actually. Worf like really idolizes his older brother Simon, and he thinks he's like brilliant and clever and like knows his shit and can do anything. So his brother Simon is like, let's do a study group. So we also get introduced to Soletta's roommate Tanya, and she instantly takes a liking to Worf. That's Tanya. She loves Worf. She's like me. She sees him and thinks, ooh. Don't put that in, actually. Don't put that in. She instantly just is very attracted to Worf. But the mood is slightly killed by Mark McHenry doing like he's put his sock on his hand and he's like making it talk weirdly. If I was a kid, I probably would have liked Mark McHenry, but I'm a grown woman and I don't. He's fine. Like I get why he's here. It's just not the kind of thing that you find funny when you're as old as I am. So yeah, Worf is like a little bit jealous because like he's arrived at Starfleet and immediately got in a fight with someone, and that's a really bad first impression. And his brother, being his like talented and clever brother, has already put together a study group, and he's like, oh, my brother's so cool. After meeting Tanya, Worf is like, right, I'm gonna go back to my room now. And the one thing happens in the book that I have like a problem with. So Worf like leaves the room, and one other kid has like done that thing where you like balance a bucket on the top of a door. So like if somebody opens it, the like bucket falls on their head and they get soaking wet. So like that. In both the drawing and the written description, the doors are supposed to do that thing, aren't they, where they go like they don't like open and close like doors do in your house in the year 2020. Wait, it's 2021. They don't like swing open like current doors do. It even says like the door made that noise. So like if the door is sliding open and closed, how did he balance the bucket on top of the door? How did he do that? Anyway, whoever this kid is, he makes reference to something, because I'm gonna admit this now. I have tried to watch the original series. I find it really dull. I can't sit through it. I think it's kind of I just find it really boring. So sometimes there are things that are a little bit lost on me. I've watched all of Next Gen, and as I said earlier, I'm on season 7 of Deep Space Nine. So sometimes I'm just like, I guess this is a reference to something. The guy who dumped the bucket on Worf's head is like, oh, me great-grandfather, Sean Finnegan, would be so proud to know that his great-grandson is keeping alive the family tradition of practical joking. I don't know who Sean Finnegan is. I probably should. Anyway, Worf punches him in the face and he never does a single practical joke ever again. Oh god. They have a few lessons and stuff, like Worf's brother struggles to answer some questions, like in classes, but every single time he does so, Worf is like, I know you're pretending to struggle to make me feel better, and his brother's like, oh, you can see right through me, Worf. He's actually struggling. But Worf is like, actually, to be fair to him, Worf is like keeping on top of all of his studies and stuff. They have the study group and things. And the Mark McHenry kid obviously is just like, and then it would be 4.3692 warp and blah blah blah, but he can't do any of the self-defense or answer any of the other questions about anything else. It's just like, why is he here? Like, why he doesn't... I feel like you don't need to go to Starfleet Academy to do something with that level of like astronavigational knowledge. It just feels like the wrong place for Mark McHenry. You're never going to manage to teach him how to throw a punch, because he doesn't pay attention to anything ever, unless it's like astronavigation. There's a cool sequence where in like a self-defense class, like Worf volunteers to use like a staff, and Zach Cabron is like, I will fight him, and they like have a fight, and they're much more experienced than any of the other cadets in sort of like hand-to-hand combat, and Worf just beats Zach Cabron, which really annoys him. The teacher like is not paying attention as well, and he's like, after they've started fighting, he's like, oh shit, these are the two kids that hate each other. Oh god, what? And he doesn't do anything. He just watches it, and thankfully it doesn't get out of hand. So good teaching, I guess. Zach is supposed to be like almost like a rock kind of guy. He's supposed to look like he's made out of rocks, but in all of the drawings, I just see Crichton. Tanya. As I said earlier, she was immediately taken with Worf and has fancied him the whole way through the book. There's a couple of moments where like she like tries to go and find him. There's one moment where she like doesn't know what to do with herself, so she goes and finds Worf's room and he's not there, and she has a go at Zach Cabron for having a go at him all the time. And yeah, she fancies him quite a lot, and after lunchtime one day, Simon takes Worf aside and is like, what are you doing? Like, she's crazy about you. Why are you not, like, reciprocating? What are you doing? And in an incredibly nuanced take, there's no romance in this book. Worf just says to his brother, like, I'm not prepared to be tokenized like that. For a kid's book in 1993, I was, like, impressed with this as a stance. And Worf says to his brother, Simon, at most, I would be an object of curiosity for her. That is all. I will not be a guinea pig for her to experiment on. If she's feeling inquisitive, let her inquire elsewhere. And like, I think there's a few different readings of that. You could say that he's just not interested in having a girlfriend, but he is specifically saying, like, I'm a Klingon and she is a human. I'm not interested in her. And, like, yeah, I am nothing more than something intriguing to her that she hasn't seen before. And I don't want to be tokenized like that, and I'm not interested in her. And that's, like, the end of it. It never really comes up again. After Worf has said, no, I'm not prepared to be treated as this kind of curio, that plotline is dropped. Worf just says, no, I'm not interested, and it stops happening. Like, it's obvious that she's still quite taken with him, but Worf has made it clear that he's not interested in pursuing it. And, like, yeah, this came out in 1993, and it's obviously aimed at kids, and reading it, I was like, oh, it's just something that's like worth thinking about. It's nice that there isn't just a romance crowbarred in. And I have to say, I was a little bit worried when I saw the cover and how like they're positioned and how that girl is behind him. I was like, oh, is this gonna have some rubbish romance shoved in? But it's obviously meant to be for boys, I think, and they don't tend to put romances in boys' books. So yeah, I was like impressed. Props, man. Peter David, apparently he did a run on Hulk where Hulk and Bruce Banner like separated, and the Hulk was a bouncer or something for a while. Like he's good. He's got some interesting ideas. He does some really good stuff with this. So yeah, I just thought that was a really, really interesting wee thing to point out. Up until this point, like, the other cadets, they haven't, like, actively, like, bullied Worf. They haven't been particularly welcoming to him either, beyond his, like, little study group. The only person that has, like, singled him out so far has been Zach Cabron. But after this, like, defense class incident, Zach colludes with the rest of the class over a piece of homework. And they are told to pick a historical, like, Starfleet encounter, like a battle, and talk about, like, how doing the Picard move thing would have changed it, which I think is, like, you blow up your ship. I don't know. I'm gonna make so many Star Trek people really angry with my just like, I think it's this. I don't care enough to look it up. Just to like how, like, it's just basically an assignment where you pick a historical battle and you talk about how it could have gone differently. Everybody in the class, apart from the study group, every single one of them has chosen a battle between Klingons and the Federation. And as the professor is like going through the class and he's like, what battle are you talking about? He picks on Zach Cabron first, and Zach Cabron is like, I only studied Klingon ones because Klingons are awful. And then he goes through some other students and finds that they also only looked at encounters with Klingons. And the professor is like fucking raging. Professor Lempicki cut him off. Do you have any scenarios that did not involve a Klingon battle? Briggs consulted his pad and pretended to look surprised. Why, no, sir. Lupinski slowly surveyed the class. There was cold fury in his eyes. May I ask how many people here worked up studies of battles that did not, repeat, not involve Klingons? Worf raised his hand, as did Simon. Tanya, the only other member of their study group in the class, was in the front row. She raised her hand. Everyone else sat in stony silence. Worf rose, gathered up his pad, and headed for the exit. Mr. Worf, I did not give you permission to leave, Lupinski called after him. Worf stopped at the door, turned, and said, With all due respect, Professor, I did not ask your permission, and then he walked out. There was a long silence. Cadets glanced at each other, smirking slightly. Lupinski wasn't smirking. He was furious. Worf as a person does seem to be, like, quite strong and quite capable, and but, like, I don't think anybody could, like, put up with that. So, he's quite upset about it. And he is, like, on the verge of quitting, because Zach Cabron has been, like, desperate for Worf to quit the whole way through this book. He's like really just like, I need to get rid of this Klingon and then I can have the room to myself, and I hate Klingons and I want him to leave. But when Worf is like angrily stalking the grounds like, I'm just gonna leave, we get a nice little cameo from Geordie LaForge. Geordie's here, and Geordie's only just got his visor, so he's like, he sees Worf through his visor and he's like, are you human? And Worf's like, what are you talking about? And then he realizes that Geordie is blind and can't tell, and Geordie's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can only kind of like, I'm just getting used to this, and your heat signature was just totally like beyond what would be healthy for a human, so sorry, I didn't realize you were a Klingon. they have like a little heart-to-heart about like not fitting in and being bullied for being different. Geordi does tell Worf that it's up to him to teach all of these other students that Klingons aren't the stereotype that they think they are, which is a bit like, that's a lot to tell a young man. Like, it's your responsibility to change all of these people's perceptions of you and your race. So I don't necessarily think that that's the best advice. Geordi's saying to Worf, like, they're students and they're learning, and Worf's like, so am I. And he has a good point. Like, it's not up to him to completely change the perception of absolutely everybody he meets about what a Klingon is. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask somebody to do. But he does agree with Geordi that, like, he can't give in. He can't quit Starfleet. Like, he's wanted this so badly. He's not going to let them bully him out of this. So he agrees to stay. And he has a little moment to himself where he's like, oh, that guy was nice. I hope I see him again. Which is quite sweet, because obviously, like, if you've read Next Gen, you're like reading it knowing that they're going to serve on the Enterprise and stuff together. And it's like, oh, he will get to see Geordi again. That's quite sweet. Geordi also, Geordi's an ensign at this point, and he recommends Worf for a like special additional training mission that like first years get taken on if they have good grades and they've been recommended by somebody. So Worf is both, so that's how he gets taken on this mission. I had gotten like this far through the book and we were yet to have the, as advertised, like, space disaster. And I was like, there's not a lot of space left for this. Chapter 10 is page 90 and the book is 119 pages. And it's like, there's only like, and it's not even a full onto 119. So there's like 30 pages of this left. How are we going to fit in a whole massive space disaster? As Worf has been recommended for this kind of like additional piece of training that the higher achieving first years can go on, he and several other cadets, including his brother and the rest of his study group and Zach Cabron, they're all taken onto a shuttle. They're gonna do like a loop round of the solar system. Starfleet have like quite an old satellite that basically it works as like an early warning system. It's the Prometheus satellite, and it's like out on the edge of the solar system. So like this little additional training exercise for first years is just taking them out to the Prometheus satellite, getting them to do like diagnostics on all of the things, check that all the instruments and that are still working properly, and then bringing them home again. Simon is looking worse for wear, and like he has gradually been getting kind of like more haggard and more tired as the book's been going on. But Worf has just been going, oh, I bet he's been doing extra studying, so he's like weeks ahead of the rest of us. Like, Simon's great, Simon's coping with everything, Simon's amazing, Simon's the best. But he's like, Zach has another little dig at Worf, and Simon's just like, God damn it, stop it! He's like actually starting to lose it a little bit. Worf's like, oh, that's a bit weird. Oh well. He does ask Simon, like, are you alright? And Simon's like, yeah, I'm fine. I stayed up late studying. I'm just tired. We've had to get up really early. I was looking at this image, and my best guess is that it's a pencil drawing that has then been cut out with a scalpel and glued onto a piece of black paper, and then like white paint or Tipex has been used for the stars, because the stars are kind of blobby. Worf and Salita, they're like paired off, and they go and they like check out all of their floor, and it's fine. And then on his comm badge, because this is the first time they get given comm badges, Worf's brother is like, can you come here and check this? I think something's not right. He's sounding like really panicked. So Worf and Salita are done. So they go up and they see what is freaking Simon out. And Simon is paired up with Zach Cabron, and Zach is just like, ugh, it's probably nothing. But there's just something on one of the readings that isn't quite right. Mark McHenry appears, and because they're running all these different like diagnostics and things, and they're arguing about whether there is actually something wrong, because if there was something wrong, like that badly, all of the sirens would be going off. But what if the sirens are broken, and what if the diagnostic program is broken, so it's saying that there's nothing wrong when there is? And Mark McHenry comes up, says some weird stuff, and just punches the computer, and that fixes it. And then all of the sirens start going off, and it turns out that they're being attacked by Romulans. And like Worf's brother Simon like freaks out. He like crouches down on the floor and starts like crying. Their commanding officer that's come with them is in a different part of the station, and he's like, we need to like fire, you guys need to start firing on this Romulan ship. Tanya's in a different part of the space station, and she's like trying her best to fire. But they're on a really old space station, and there's no way it's going to stand up to a Romulan warbird. They're constantly getting like Tanya through their combat, being like, shields down to 45%, shields down to 20%, and like the place just gets blasted and it starts falling apart, and like horrifically they then hear their commanding officer like screaming and dying over their comm badges. Simon is just freaking out. He's just crouched on the floor like crying, and all of the like electronic panels are overloading, and all of the like the roof is coming down, and Worf and Zach are like hard men. So and Salita's logical, so she's unfazed. So they're all like, we need to leave, and Simon is just like cowering in a corner like having a piss, and Worf basically just like picks him up and throws him out of the room, and he's like on his comm badge like shouting at everyone like, we need to get back to the shuttle, like this place is going to explode, like there's no way it can stand up to a Romulan warbird, everybody to the shuttle. And like it's all crashing around, and then oh god, the whole place like she rumbles and shakes, and Cabron like falls down a lift shaft, and Worf and Salita like they hold out their hands and they like grab him and like pull him up, like just as like an explosion is happening underneath him, and it's all very alarming. It's very exciting. So there's Zach, like he's fallen down the lift shaft, and Worf and Salita are like desperately trying to help him get out. They're desperately trying to get to the shuttle, and everything's crumbling around them. They heard a sound like a death knell, the world being ripped apart around them. Worf saw Simon collapse, sobbing and clutching at his knees, pulling into a fetal position. Then in a searing flash of light and a blast of deafening sound, the Prometheus station was swallowed in the fire that its mythological namesake had brought to mankind. Worf lost his footing. Not surprising, because the floor was gone. The rending of metal and the death screams of the satellite itself drowned out everything else. Flame leapt up all around them, blocking every possible escape. So yeah, Worf is like screaming like it is a good day to die, and he's like happy that he's going to get into Sto-vo-kor in this battle. But and then the heat was gone, as was the station, and the cadets were hurled into the vast, airless, freezing vacuum of space. And as they floated helplessly, waiting for death to claim them, they saw in the cold depths Commander Clark, who is supposedly dead. And he was standing perfectly still, unsmiling, and waving. Computer, end program. They were in a holosuite the whole time. They were never in any danger. They were never being attacked by Romulans. Worf's brother Simon is like really angry. He's like raging. He can't believe that he's been put through this and it turned out to not even be real. And he like makes the holosuite make a door so he can leave, and like storms out and blah blah blah, and like Worf like chases after him, and he's like, Simon, what are you doing? And Simon like finally admits to Worf that it's just like, this is not for me, like I can't do it, that was so stressful, like don't, oh god, like I no, all I did was cry and you were really good, you should stay in Starfleet, I'm leaving. Worf's not like disappointed, but I guess it's quite a nice moment for him, because he's like throughout his childhood like almost been in Simon's shadow a little bit, and this is the first time where he has like really dealt with the situation far better than his brother has. And like, yeah, well done cadets, mission successful. You would have died, but you all did the right thing, so you pass, I guess. And now that Worf has essentially saved Zach's life, although, as we now know, it turned out they weren't in any danger at all, they both return to their quarters, and Zach's like, oh, what is this line doing on the floor? And Worf's like, I don't know. I'd forgotten it was there. And they're like, oh, people will think that we're friends, but they don't know how stubborn we both are. Ha ha ha. And they both like just sit and read a book and are now kind of like, I guess they're not friends, but they like respect each other. It says on the back, like, Worf must unite the cadets and risk his life before a terrible accident claims the entire class. And like, Worf doesn't really unite the cadets. He just copes well in a situation and tells them all over his comm badge, like, we need to get to the shuttle because this place is going to explode. And he doesn't, like, yeah, there's not a moment where they're all together and they're all feeling hopeless, and like Worf like gives them a rousing speech or something. I mean, that's what happens in Star Trek. People give like rousing speeches, or like comes up with an idea that like saves them all or something. He just doesn't freak out at the first sign of trouble, saves his brother and saves Zach, but he doesn't save them all because the space station still explodes and they would all technically die. It's not the cheapest thing in the world that it turns out that it's in a holosuite. It feels a little bit like it was all a dream, which is always a bit of a cop-out. But I guess for something like this, because of the nature of this kind of book and because of like what Star Trek is, you can't do anything too character altering. Your character still has to be on track with who they're going to be at the beginning of Next Gen. So you can't add in some like huge life-changing like event, because that then might muddle up what people are doing. Because there's a little timeline in the front of this, and it's talking about like Commander Benjamin Sisko assumes command of Deep Space Nine. So they're already like, DS9 is like already happening. So Worf has already had like quite a lot of backstory and stuff. So you can't do anything too traumatic or too out there. So I appreciate that. I just wish that there had been more time spent on this disaster and more time on Worf like supposedly unifying the cadets in his class, because that doesn't really happen. I feel like because there's quite a long preamble of like Worf's parents like fussing over him and him going to the academy, like, because it's like it opens with them like on this launch pad and how his parents feel and who his brother is, and the shuttle arriving and them getting on the shuttle and them talking to people on the shuttle and then the shuttle landing and then they're getting out. I feel like you could have condensed some of that beginning in order to like spend a little bit more time on the disaster at the end. I imagine as this is a kid's book, I imagine there's like a strict word count and that kind of thing. And like as well, because this is a kid's book, I know that you do need to spend some time like really establishing who all of these characters are, because if you're a kid that's watched Star Trek, you might not necessarily remember like the one episode with Worf's parents in, which is a great episode. Or are they in more than one, or are they in just one? I can't remember. So yeah, within the constraints of what this is allowed to do, it's really good. And yeah, like there's only like a couple of things where I'm like, you could have spent more time doing that. It really surprised me, and in really good ways. Like I was really excited when I saw that there were drawings. The illustrations are by a guy called James Fry, and the cover art is by Catherine Huerta. they've both done a really good job with the drawings. Like, Worf is quite he's quite iconic. Like, people know Worf. Like, regardless of whether you love him or hate him, you know what Worf looks like. And it's quite a challenge to, like, as an artist, to look at a character and try to, like, de-age them and draw what they will look like when they're younger, because the differences, although very obvious when you're a human being walking around in the world, you know the differences between like an old and a young person. It's quite difficult as an artist to render like one person across several points in their life. Like it's very actually subtle things that happen to your face that, you know, they happen gradually over time. And if you look at photographs, obviously it's a very stark contrast, but it is difficult, particularly I feel like with like Worf's kind of design. It's quite hard to be like, well, how am I going to draw teenage Worf? And I actually think they both, like, the cover art is great. I was really excited to read it and I really enjoyed myself. I think if you go into these books knowing that they're for kids and that nothing like too character changing is going to happen, that because of the constraints that the author is working in, you're going to have a good time, and it's well written and it's not riddled with typos, and I've not read anything that hasn't had a million typos in recently, so that was a breath of fresh air, not going, oh you've spelt that wrong. That didn't happen in this. There was a page where the ink had obviously been missing from the book plate, but again, that's the kind of thing that only I would ever be interested in, so, because I'm a big nerd. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a wee like and maybe a follow. I'm going to be going back to some pocket novels for the next couple of videos, and there's like Evil Brothers and Tropical Islands. They look great, so watch out for those. I'm also going to put links below to like my social media as well as my Ko-fi. My Ko-fi page is it's like Patreon, so you can either sign up to make a monthly contribution, or you can just do a one-off payment, so you can just send me like a $5 and you will gain access to like little snippets of like supporter-only content. It's usually little previews to like what I'm going to be doing next. There's also little insights into my webcomic projects and stuff that I'm working on, and other little snippets of things that I think might be interesting. So check that out if you haven't already. I'm really, really happy that my comm badge hasn't fallen apart. So I made this with like an old badge and like an instant coffee box and like some foil, because like I was like, yeah, I should wear a comm badge because I've got that like red burgundy kind of turtleneck that looks kind of like Starfleet uniformy. I should get like a comm badge, and I had a look on the internet and the two price points for comm badges were like a $5 or like 50 quid, and I was just like, I'm not paying 50 quid for something that is essentially just a prop in a video, and B, like, I don't even want to pay a $5. Like, the pocket novels cost me like 4 quid, and it's just like, I am not paying more for a prop than I do for an entire book.